As long as you are persistent and really pursuing whatever that risk was or whatever that goal was, and you're watching over it really closely and doing everything you can to get it to move forward, then it likely will.
All right, and welcome back to the Art of Connecting podcast. This is your host, Hayden Fike, here with Ryan Corcoran. This is a guest that got introduced to me by my friend Jake. We are both in the Action Academy together, and Jake heard about my podcast and what it's all about, and he was like, you need to talk to Ryan, dude. He's killing it in his business, and he'd be a great guest. It's a pleasure to have you on today, and thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
So let's go ahead and get rolling. Can you tell me a little bit about who you are, Ryan, and what your business is and what you love to do?
So my name is Ryan. I live in Massachusetts. I own a real estate company across New Hampshire, Mass, and Rhode Island. We have a couple hundred rental properties. We flip 40-ish homes a year, and then we wholesale another. We've also got a couple of development projects going, 36 unit development, and then a couple of duplex development projects. So I am certainly busy. I started when I was 21. I bought a duplex, and then I held on to it for a couple of years, ended up selling it, walking away with a check the size of basically what my salary was going to be when I was done school. And I said, hey, there's got to be something to this. So a 2-family led to a 3-family, and then a 5-unit, and then a 6-unit, and then so on and so forth. And it kept rolling. So now it's much more than just me. We have a really great team. We have great partners. And yeah, we're cruising along.
Very cool. That sounds like quite a journey, man. Starting at 21, that's what I started at 21. Hopefully I can follow in your footsteps a little bit there. Let's talk about that first duplex. What did that look like as far as like how you decided to start investing into real estate?
Yeah, dude, like I had no money. I was going to school to get my master's, or I was about to graduate my undergrad, and I was thinking about either going to medical school or PA school. Long story short, I ended up going to PA school. But before I went to PA school, I started looking into like, all right, how do you like just make money? Like just in general. Stumbled upon bigger pockets, real estate, just investing, starting a business, just a bunch of different avenues. For some reason, real estate caught my attention. I happen to have an uncle who was in the construction field, so I chatting with him a handful of times. He basically said, look, if you can find a good opportunity, I will help you out. I didn't really know what that meant at the time, so I literally just started making offers randomly on MLS properties, like literally going to properties without any pre-approvals, nothing. I'd just show up to the open houses and start making offers, and they'd all get rejected. Except for this one, happened to be a project that went under agreement and then fell through. And I went to go walk it the second time, and I brought my uncle this time. And he was like, look, it probably fell through because of my infection. You know, there's asbestos on the pipes. The furnace is old. The roof needs to be replaced. A classic fixer-upper. And he was like, do the math and let me know what the number is you think you can offer. So I did. And I came back to him, and he was like, yeah, I agree. Make the offer. And I'm like, how am I going to afford this? We'll figure that out later once you get accepted. So long story short, they accepted the offer. My uncle ended up funding $100,000 of the 125 for me. So I had to put 25 down. I didn't have 25. I had about 5. So I put all my 5 down. Then I borrowed 20 from my parents and a couple other people, just like literally just threw this deal together. But it ended up paying off, the rents were covering everything. I was making like $700 or $800 a month in cash flow on a duplex. It was 125 grand, right? So nothing crazy, $700 or $800 a month while I was in my master's program. Then I ended up selling it after I graduated, and I walked away with a check bigger than my salary would be when I was out of school. But yeah, that's how the first one went.
It sounds like a lot of people that I talk to in the investing career is they're going to school for something, or they're working in a job doing something, and then they just get their hands dirty a little bit. And then they look at the numbers and they're like, wait, if I were to do this multiple times, like maybe if I just even did this 2 times, like wholesaling, for example, if you wholesaled 2 houses, you probably make more than what most people make in a year, like
Dude,
the average.
All the time. Yeah.
And then it's like something flips in your brain, like the sheet's taking off, and you're like, oh, wait, hold on a second. There's something to this.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think the biggest thing when I was 21 though, was I could take a risk and it wouldn't matter. So if I fell on my face, I was 21. Like I have, knock on wood, the rest of my life to fix a mistake that I make at 21. I didn't care. So it was almost naive of me to just jump right in. But I think you have to be that way. Even still to this day, I'll take a risk that don't have the odds of turning out in my favor very often if I believe that it will work out. And usually it works out because when you do take a risk and you're completely over it and you're on top of it and you're controlling as much as you can, the outcome is typically the way you want it to go eventually. You're going to run into a bunch of hiccups, but as long as you are persistent and really pursuing that, whatever that risk was or whatever that goal was, and you're watching over it really closely and doing everything you can to get it to move forward, then it likely will. And a lot of people don't really understand that. They think, oh my God, I'm going to spend money on this property. What if the toilet breaks? What if the tenant calls? Dude, who cares? If the toilet breaks, it's $120 to put a new toilet in. It's not the end of the world. So yeah, it was the biggest turning point when I started was really just being able to take a risk.
Mm. So, what would your word of advice be to someone who maybe has 3 kids and a family to support and maybe doesn't have that luxury? Being where you are now, what would you say to them?
Yeah, that is a great question. I will say that my mentality hasn't changed, right? So like I have a kid coming in December. I have responsibilities now. I've got a wife. I've got the dogs. I've got houses. I have a lot of more responsibilities now, but I'm still the same way. Like I could go broke tomorrow and I would just continue to keep doing the exact same thing only because that's just how I am. If you have 3 kids, you've got a family, it's a little bit different because you can't just put all your cash on the line, but there's ways to do it. I wouldn't really use that as an excuse is my personal take on it. But again, I can't really speak on that because I haven't been in their shoes. But I think my advice would be just work on the fundamentals. It's real estate is fairly simple, right? You've got a property that is worth X. You can get it for below X. You are probably going to be in a pretty good position no matter what happens because you bought it for less than it's worth. And it all starts right there. So if you've got a family and responsibilities, just focus on finding a really good deal, get it on a contract, and then you can figure out what to do with it from there.
Yeah, I think this again, I don't have 3 kids or I just have a cat, but from all of the wise people that I've talked to that maybe even started after like they already had the kids, it's just like getting your hands dirty a little bit. And that goes for anybody. Has
Yeah.
that been the same experience for you?
I forget who said this, but it's like gold. You have an idea of what you want to do, right? So let's say you want to buy 100 rental properties or you want to have $1 million a year or a couple $1 million a year, whatever you want to do, right? How do you actually get there? Like, it's not going to happen tomorrow. You don't have a magic wand that says I'm there. You just have to start moving in that direction. And that could simply be reading a book or doing a podcast, like listening to a podcast, going out to lunch with somebody that's doing it. Just start moving, even if it's so small, just in that direction. And then something else, another door will open. Something else will come on your plate. You'll be able to do something else. And it just starts to snowball over time. So that's how I would start. Don't get so overwhelmed. Oh my God, how the hell am I going to get there? Just start doing little things.
Absolutely. I love a piece you said, so I'm going to dig on into this. You mentioned just going to get lunch with someone who's doing it. How important have connections been to getting going in this business when you started with no money?
Literally everything. I like to tell the story. I've told this a couple podcasts. So if anyone's listening and they've heard me before on a podcast, you've heard this before, but I moved to Rhode Island from Massachusetts a couple of years back. And I'm actually back in Massachusetts now. But when I showed up, I asked everybody every time I meet someone who's just killing it, I always say, dude, like who are the best people you know that are also doing this? And they'll tell you, right? And then I'll reach out to those people and I'll just keep doing the same thing. So I happened to meet an attorney, gave me this guy who's like, he's the best agent in Rhode Island to reach out to. I ended up reaching out to him. Anyways, long story short, got pulled into a mastermind with just 5 dudes, right? There's just 5 of us in the local area. They're all just crushing it, like miles ahead of me. I did not belong when I first started in that room. And we show up the first day and everyone's like telling their goals about what they want to do for whatever 2021. And I started and I was like, I want to get the 300 rental unit. And everyone's, wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. The next guy next to me goes, I want to make 10 million bucks this year. The guy after that goes, I want to make $1 million a month. The guy after that, I've already made 500 grand this month. I need to get to 650 to hit my goal. And I was like, what in the world? Again, this was a couple of years ago, right? My jaw just hit the ground. I was like, dude, you guys are making how much money? I'm making like a couple hundred grand a year. You guys are making that a month and then some, like 2 or 3 times me. Since that day, I have done probably 5 or 6 deals with each one of those people every single year that I'm at in that mastermind. And just in that mastermind single-handedly, they have made me, I can't even count the amount, not just money, but connections, deals, lunches and dinners and events. And like, dude, it's unbelievable that the power of the people that you can meet. And so since then, I've literally made it a goal just once a month to go out with somebody that is doing something bigger and better than me that I have no idea about just to learn. So for example, this one, I'm going out with somebody who does FX trading. He has a $50 million FX trading fund. I know nothing about that. And I don't care anything about ethics. But just to meet somebody else who's doing something who I can learn from, you never know when I might need to raise capital. That person might be there or whatever. Right. So yeah, huge.
What an incredible story. I think that might be one of the tops for my podcast, just hearing that. Because so many people I ask this question, and it's hard for them to think about the moment that they met someone or a group that changed their life. Because a lot of times we get going and we don't really think about the fact that the human connections oftentimes are like pushing us in the direction that we end up going. So would you say like when you were sitting in that circle and hearing those things, your mind immediately switched to bigger thoughts?
Yeah, it was actually intimidating because we meet once a month, right? So after I left that meeting, first I was all freaking jacked up. Like I was fired up for 4 or 5 days straight. Like I couldn't sleep. I was like, what in the world has happened to me, right? I couldn't show up to that next meeting though, and neither could anybody else because everyone's comparing themselves to everybody, right? So I show up to the next meeting and I've got 2 deals I can bring this guy. I've got X I can bring this guy. I have a deal that I know about in the back of my head that I can bring this guy. So I'm just like, all right, I am a totally different person coming to this next meeting because of that first one. And what it does is it's accountability, but it's more of I don't even know like a word for it. You're not going to show up in a room with a bunch of people who are doing things way bigger than you the same you did last, right? Like you need to prove your value to be in that room. And the only way to do that is to grow. And so I just took it and ran with it. It's all about bringing value. And so like for me to step back in that room and not have value for every single one of those people, I would be doing myself poor service essentially. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. It's crazy. It really is.
Yeah, and also just something that I've found too in getting connected with one of those people, there's a guy that I got introduced to at a party at his business. It's like the largest furniture store in our city, like huge. And I got introduced to him. And my other friend who I've actually had on the podcast before has all of these really wealthy people in his circle. And I got introduced to that one guy. And I'm walking on the sidewalk and I see him and I said hi. And he was like, "Oh, pull up a chair. I'll buy you dinner." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll say yes to that any day." And it turns out I'm sitting across one of his friends who flew in from Minnesota to come and be with him was on like selling the founding team of Gateway Software or something like that. So Gateway Computers, for those who are my age, I remember playing pinball like on my parents' Gateway computer, but this was a huge company back in the 90s and they were taking the founders to the Super Bowl and he told me all these stories and I'm just like, what the heck? This guy has lived 100 lives and it's just so cool because we're just sat there and I looked and we're sitting in Chattanooga, Tennessee talking about this. It's just crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool. Connections are huge.
Yeah, so let's talk about your uncle. So that seems like the first thing where you were been able to explore. As you're growing up, did you ever ask your uncle about his business or anything like that, or does this just happen since?
Nope. Honestly, my mom actually was like, "You should go talk to Uncle Mike. He's bought real estate before. He owns a construction company." And I literally just did that. I said, "Hey, Uncle Mike, I'm interested in doing this." And he was like, when you meet someone who's super successful at something, it's very rare that they don't want to teach you, especially if they see that there's a lot of drive and motivation behind, right? So every single weekend for 6 months straight, I was there at his house and we were talking about, I learned everything from rentals, evictions, cost segregation studies, 1031 exchanges, like you name it. I got an education learning from him and reading a bunch of books. A lot of people are going to be like, oh yeah, you're lucky to have your uncle. Oh, yes, I am. Don't get me wrong. But is that the reason why I'm here? Absolutely not. Like I would have found somebody else, like I have many times, right? My uncle played a huge role when I first started on that first property. And he's been a private lender here and there for specific projects over the last 7 or 8 years. Yes. But if you look at the amount of capital I've raised and the deals I've done, he's a very small portion now, right? But you need that person to get you off the ground if you are coming from zero. And everybody knows somebody. And if you're going to sit here and tell me you don't, that's bullshit. I can guarantee you, you know somebody who has money. You're just either too afraid to go talk to them or you don't have a way into their network. And the easiest way to get into their network is just like, what do they actually do? What is their business? And then go find out what that is and just bring them whatever they're looking for to grow their business. And you will get in a room with them just by doing that.
And I think also it's what do they need?
Exactly.
As I'm meeting these people who, as the guy that I was referencing to, have he will tell you he has all the money he needs. He doesn't need more money. So I have to think about what do these people want out of life? What stage are they in right now? And what need can I fulfill? Because if you can figure out a need that you can fulfill for that person and then find a way to fulfill it, Like you instantly become the man or the girl for whatever job it is because you've proved yourself.
Absolutely, dude. In real estate specifically, I don't know what the main audience here, but in real estate specifically, 99% of the time, the way to get into a room with someone who's crushing it is find a deal, right? So it all comes back to being able to find something that helps people out. But in real estate, if you can find a deal, you can get into any room you want, literally any room. If you want to get into commercial real estate, go find an undervalued commercial piece of real estate. You want to get into multifamily, go find an apartment building that needs TLC that you can find off market 100 grand below asking price, right? Go out and do the work and find something that person needs. Now, I know we're talking about business here and you made a good point. Like, it's not always about business, right? What about another aspect of their life, right? It could be anything. I just happen to relate to real estate. So for me, it's always been deal finding. So if I could just meet somebody who I know needed a certain deal, I could just literally go find that deal. Now, it might take me a year to find that deal, but it doesn't matter, right? Like, I would go out and work and find that deal and bring it to somebody. And now I'm in their room.
And then once you bring that deal, you get introduced to all of their lenders, all of their people that you get to see behind the curtains on the process
They're
at
gonna
each
teach.
stake.
Yeah, exactly. You learn, you get a bird's view of what they do. And if it interests you at that point, great. Now you can go hyper dive into one of those aspects that you learned from. And if it doesn't matter, you've now met a whole bunch of people that you can leverage off of and you can go bring somebody else value, right? And just keep working it, keep working the system. It's like a big cobweb. Everyone's intertwined somehow. So if you can find a way to bring some value to somebody, you're going to get introduced to somebody else. And then a whole other network opens up.
Do you agree that you should tell everyone about what you're interested in? Like if you have a goal to buy a duplex, do you go and tell every person you meet, "Hey, I want to buy a duplex." You think that's a good strategy?
Yeah, dude, 100%. I don't really see what the negatives are on it. I can't think of one negative of it at all. The worst absolute thing that will happen is people will just get annoyed with listening to you talk. And who cares? Does it really matter? Because you're going to find that one person who's going to be like, I know somebody who sells a duplex. I know somebody who owns a duplex. I know somebody who owns 40 duplexes, right? And so eventually you're going to meet people and you'll get what you want. And the people that are annoyed by you, then they probably don't matter anyways.
Yeah, if people are annoyed by you, you should probably cut them out anyways if you
Exactly.
want to I always try to have people around me who are in like pushing me to do more rather than saying, "Whoa, why are you doing that much?" Like, why are you want to have people who are confirming the direction you're going rather than pushing against it. And it's hard to cut those people out. Brian just put out a podcast about cutting the people out that aren't a fit. And that can be really difficult to do because sometimes it's people that you love. But I
Yeah.
feel like
And you
sometimes
know
you have
what?
to
I have a good, I don't know, this might be able to help some people in that position. So cutting people, like, you don't necessarily have to completely cut them out, right? Like, picture your life as like you're the conductor of a train or you're driving a bus, right? And you got a bunch of seats behind you. They can still be on the bus, right? Let's say it's, I don't know, your cousin, right? You hang out with your cousin a bunch, but all he does is play video games and drink and smoke on the weekends and whatever. You do that once in a while, but you're trying to grow up. You're trying to get into build a business. I don't know, just this stupid example, right? Your cousin doesn't have to leave the bus. He can move to the back. You can still have a conversation with him here and there. You can still hang out with him once in a while. But the less and less you do that, and the more you hang out with other people and bring other people who are doing bigger things to the front of your bus, if you're driving the bus, you're going to hear conversations of the people closest to you, right? So you want people who are just way ahead of you, closer to you than people who are not. And again, you don't have to completely cut them out, but being closer and really being intentional about focusing and bringing more time to people who are ahead of you will solve that problem.
mm,
And then what you're going to find out is, man, like, this is not hard at all. Like, it's not even hard. It's not difficult at all for me to separate a little bit from somebody like that because I'm not becoming a better person. And you'll see that as you roll through it. So
I think that's a great analogy. Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to mention too, you may be in like the best, what you think is the best environment for you, but it might not be. Like, for example, one of my friends is at Yale and he wants to get into syndicating real estate. And all of the people that he's around are basically calling him a lunatic because he doesn't want to go and be an intern at a big bank, or he doesn't want to go and get this cushy sales title. He wants to go and syndicate properties. And that's not like the way, right? And so you can even be at like one of the most prestigious schools in the world and still have people that are holding you back from your potential. Cause a lot of them, they're going to line up to go and take a two to $300,000 a year job. And then eventually they'll be making a lot of money. You can make that much in one deal doing large syndications if you have the knowledge and the connections you need. So it's just really interesting how there's levels to the people that
Absolutely.
hold you back.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Let's talk about things that are coming up. What do you need in your business right now? What's holding you back from where you want to go?
So I think for almost anybody in real estate right now, finding deals that actually pencil out is probably the biggest challenge that most investors are running into. We've got 8% interest rates. We've got properties sitting on the market a little bit longer. Price drops. Left. I have 3 flips on the market. We've dropped the prices on it 3 times. Now, fortunately, there's a ton of equity in there, so I don't really care. I just want them to move. But that's really not a good sign for investors, right? However, if the deal is good enough, that then it's great, right? So I think for everybody, me included, it's deal flow. No, that could be someone who's doing 1 to 5 deals a year, or 5 to 10, or 100 plus deals a year. I know guys who are, one of my good friends is a wholesaler. He'll probably do 120 deals this year, and he's, dude, my deal flow right now, my lead flow is dropping because I can't offload these properties as fast as I could before. There aren't as many buyers who are coming in and scooping up these properties because of whatever's happening in the market. So fortunately, I'm not just a wholesaler and not just a flipper and not just a developer. So I have different exit strategies for these deals. But yeah, I think deal flow, just leads, strong leads.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
And I've actually struggled with this too as I'm trying to I own a self-storage facility and I want to get quite a few more. It's a goal of mine to get 200 self-storage doors before the end of this quarter, which might happen. So I want to set goals that are crazy and tell people that. And that way, if I get 50, I actually secretly would be happy. But I said
Yep.
200 because it seems crazy. But I've got a 260 unit I'm going to look at tomorrow. We'll see what happens. But
Yep.
anyways, I have struggled with that, but now that I am just sharing my goals with everyone, I shared my goals with my friend Ryan. And he was like, "Oh, Mike's selling his storage facility," and that's how this kind of came to be. I would have no idea that Mike was selling his storage facility until it hit the market if I hadn't have told Ryan my goal.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going back to. It's like what I was saying earlier. People get annoyed with you, just they're probably not important, right? Tell everybody what you're doing, what you're trying to do, what you have going on. Something clicks, right? Most people are interested. And who wouldn't be interested in that, right? If you tell someone you're trying to buy 200 doors before the end of the year, it's October 31st, Halloween. People are going to be like, dude, you're crazy, Bill. Tell me more. That's super interesting. What do you do with stuff? Like the conversation is going to spark, and then they might know somebody who knows somebody else, or you never know, man. So I totally agree.
This is another thing too for the people who are wanting to get started in real estate. So the other night, Soli was on, and she specializes in raising private money for flips and for wholesale deals and things like that to be able to buy them. And what she does, she started with 900 followers and just posted on Instagram, "Hey, I've got this house. Anyone interested in partnering?" And then as she refined her process, she has this form where people will put if they're interested in partnering, AKA private lending to her, and then what interest rate they're going to get paid. And then in the form, they ask, how much money do you have you're looking to invest? And she said it's been anywhere between 50,000 to 5 million.
Mhm.
And just like that, just by posting a picture of a junky house on a story saying, "Hey, do you want to partner with this?" She has leads on people that have $5 million that they're looking to lend out. Circle. And she started with 900 followers. It's not like she had 125,000 followers from the jump.
Right.
It's just putting
Right.
that first post out, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. That's awesome. What a good idea. I feel like that's like people now. I see that all the time now. People like just post, like, who wants to partner with this, like in a Facebook group or something like that. And you get 1,000 people commenting on it. Now, a lot of them are probably junk and fluff, but what are the odds that one of those is actually real? Pretty high, right? So yeah, I think that's fantastic.
And there's a benefit for the lender too. They're getting 9% APR on their return. And if it's just sitting in the bank, you're only going to get 5. And their assets, like she ran us through a deal last night on the Action Academy, actually like looking at what one of her deals that she actually did was.
Yeah.
And she bought it with 70% of ARV and it only needed 10 grand in repairs. So
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer. It's a pretty secure asset. Now there's risk involved, but that's one of the beautiful parts about it is the bigger risk you take, the bigger reward. With your business, what's like your goal for the next year, let's say?
Dude, it always changes, right? At first it was, I want to have a bunch of rental units, right? A bunch of rentals. And I did that. I accumulated a ton of rentals. And then I realized they just don't make that much money. They do okay, but like when a roof goes, there's your year's cash flow, freaking water heaters, boilers, evictions, just vacancies, right? So I love rentals. Don't get me wrong. I still buy rentals. I'm going to get 43 minutes tomorrow. I know I'll probably end up buying that one because we already have done an agreement. But now I buy rentals for tax reasons, not just for cash flow and for appreciation and equity. And this is something I still don't think a lot of people understand. If you have a business that's making money, active income, and you go buy a rental property and you do a cost segregation study on that, if you buy it right and you do it right and it's expensive enough, you can wipe out all of your taxable income and you can get down to zero. In fact, last year I overpaid. If someone's IRS is listening to this, I overpaid by like 30 grand on my taxes last year because of all the real estate that I bought. And so now my goal is not just to buy rentals just for rentals. It's to buy rentals to offset all the other active income. So that's from wholesaling, that's from flips, that's from building a house and selling it, that's from developing condos, whatever active income I have coming in to buy enough real estate and enough rentals, which is producing cash flow, but it's wiping off all my taxable gains,
Mm.
or at least most of it, right? That was the first move with buy rentals. Then I realized they weren't making that much money. So then I started flipping property and I started making a lot more money, like exponentially more money flipping properties. And then I hate project management. Once you buy a property, your risk is inherently higher. Your cash conversion cycles way longer. Sometimes it's on average, it's 6 months, 7 months flipping property from start to finish. All the things that can go wrong with it, right? I remember I had one deal and I made $500 on a flip one time. And I'm like, the amount of work it took to do this to make 500 grand, where I could have just wholesaled that property and probably made 20 grand right off the rip just by wholesaling somebody. So we pivoted now into doing wholesale first. And if a wholesale isn't going to work out, or if it's just an absolute smash deal, we'll take it down ourselves. But I think moving forward, it's to become a larger wholesale company. There's a lot of they call them national wholesale groups, right? Some of these guys are doing a couple $1 million a month in wholesale assignments. That is the vision I see moving forward. So yeah, again, I don't have a specific goal for it yet, but that's where I'm pivoting towards. So
Okay. So it sounds like it is to become a larger wholesale business, to do more wholesaling.
for now, yeah, for now, right? Until something changes or the market changes or whatever. I also have 6 restaurants I have to open in the next couple of years. We have our first one opening in May that I bought with a partner. So I have that going on. So that's going to take up some time once it opens up, and then bigger development projects as well. So yeah, I don't really know. It's a mix of a bunch of, but yeah, I think becoming more of a wholesale operation moving forward is going to be the move. So
I want to take this in a new direction. So hearing everything you have going on makes my brain hurt a little bit. I've got 5 things going on, and 5 things is enough to like, my Google Calendar is just like a sea of blue all day. Of every day there's so much that needs to get done,
yeah,
and most of the
yeah.
time it carries over to the next. How do you utilize, using the who not how analogy? I'm not sure if you've read that book yet, but how do you decide when you need to hire someone and find a connection to outsource to?
That's a good question. So really the only reason I'm able to do so many things is because of people, whether that's a partner or whether that's an employee. And so tough to answer that question. I think the easiest way to do this is, okay, let's just use money, right? Everyone likes money. So figure out how much money you're making every year doing whatever you're doing. And if you can bring somebody else in and take some of the chips off the table for yourself, but you free up, let's call it 20 hours a week or 30 hours a week, and you can then put that towards a higher value task that will continue to make you more money. I think it's probably time to do that when you hit a certain point where you feel like, okay, like I'm making enough money. My business is sustaining. I'm doing everything. I think it's time to bring in the $20 an hour admin. Now you have 20 hours a week that you can go allocate towards finding more deals or project management or whatever your business is, right? You'll know when you hit that point because you'll be inundated. You'll feel like you are unable to catch up with time. You're not falling asleep at night because you've got too many things going on in your brain. You're waking up early in the morning, you have things to do right away, or things are getting finished that you absolutely have to bring somebody into that point. In fact, I would think you're already too late at that point. I like to bring people in as soon as I feel like I can put a system in place for something.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know. Tough to answer that question. There's no really like mathematical or numbers pinpoint that says, hey, you need to hire now. It's more of a feeling. On top of that, like building a team is what this is all about. Doing everything yourself is not fun. It's just not fun. You find yourself doing really high level tasks and really low level tasks, and you get swung back and forth. You can never actually pick up traction if you don't have a team that's doing things for you and that believes in it and buys into it. So I would really focus on trying to systemize everything you do. And then when you build that system, hand it to somebody and then watch them run with it. And if you bring in the right person, you'll be amazed that system improves and gets better and they'll tweak it themselves. And you realize that you sucked at it and they're way better. So
Awesome. When you're looking to hire someone, do you typically just go out to Indeed or do you reach in your network first?
this is also something I've struggled with for a while. I've always just tried to reach in my network. Um, Having a large network has been really helpful because I feel like I'm able to get a really good person to fit a role, but it's probably not the best still, right? It's probably still not the best. And to actually find the best of the best is what you really need in a business. If you have an A player, it's 4 or 5 C or B players, right? And so most people just don't have that in their network already. And I don't know if that's posting on Indeed or if it's reaching out to just people posting on social media, just trying to seek this person out. Really, the best way to do it, I think, is go on LinkedIn and try to poach somebody from another company who's doing exactly what you need, who's already doing it, and offer them a better package. And that's probably the best way to get people.
I
So
always heard this. I used to sit up in the talent recruiting section of a Fortune 150 company. And something they would say is if someone is an A player, they're probably employed somewhere right now. If
100%.
the best
Absolutely.
person to do the job is likely employed doing that job, they're gonna
Market.
be without work
Right.
because they're so good. Even in the worst of situations, they're gonna have a job because they're the best. And obviously, that might not apply for a fast food worker, but if you're looking for a project manager to take you from 2 million to 20 million, you should probably go hire a project manager that's doing 10 million or 20 million because they're going to know how to take you from where you are to where you want to go.
Exactly. That's 100% correct. That's literally brilliant. Anyone who's worth having on your team is going to be already working for another team. And so the only way to find that talent is to go find that person. And it's going to take work, right? Like it's not just you post on Indeed and have the applicants roll in. Sure, you might be able to get a B player, which could take you to let's say, 10 million maybe. But if you want to get to 20, the only way to do that is to have that A player and that A player is working somewhere else, right? You've got to figure out a way to get that person, entice that person, build a package for them, give them equity, profit splits, whatever it is, but it'll pay off in the long run.
I think that part of that too can be offline. It could be going to the golf course, meeting the guy that works in the construction company, maybe wearing the boots to the golf course. And you're like, what the heck? Why is it? And then you start talking to that person, and he's, yeah, I'm the project manager for the largest construction company in town. And that's the kind of person where you're like, you just put it in the back of your head and you think about that. And each time you meet that person, you learn a little more about them. And as you do that, then you go, why don't you come work for me? You can pick up on the things that maybe they're unhappy with or the things that are the problems.
Or the thing
And
like, right? Let's say you're golfing, right? Let's you now have a every couple months you take the team out golfing, right? Now all of a sudden he's gonna be like, hang on a minute. I like golfing. I like project management. Maybe I see something. Just little things like that go a long way for team culture.
yeah. Have you heard of Justin Stamper before?
No.
He's one of the hosts of Zombie House Flipping. And I got the pleasure of meeting him at Bigger Pockets, and we went out and had dinner, and he was cracking me up. He rents a private jet for his team of 10 to fly from Orlando to wherever they wanna go, like Colorado or whatever. He runs a wholesaling team in Orlando, and that's the kind of stuff that he does for his team, and it was sitting there blowing my mind. I'm like, "I wanna work for this guy. That sounds like fun." And because he rented the private jet, he became friends with the pilot, and so the deal gets better for him because if he just buys the pilot dinner and pays him a little enough for the fuel,
Yeah.
he'll just go out and hang out with them because
Yeah. Yeah.
they're just fun to be around. And that's the kind of things that most people just never it was not even conceivable. Like, to spend $10,000 on your team for a night for 10 people, who would do that? But it's like, that creates the environment where you retain those A players and you attract them because A players want A benefits.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's awesome. And that $10,000 is coming back tenfold because you know that those guys are pouring into that business for him, right? So
Plus, it's a write-off. If you're making a load of money, you need write-offs.
yeah.
So it's just the business world is interesting to me because of all of that. And it all just goes back to making people feel good about themselves and where they work, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're winding up on our time here already. I think this has been a great higher level episode. A lot of my other episodes, I get really like deep into the networking part, but I feel like business wise, this has been an amazing episode to talk about these things. I want to ask you about when you were deciding between going to master school or do I do this thing? Who were the voices in your ear that really helped you go the direction that you ended up going?
So it was either medical school or PA school to start. Actually, the decision was actually made for me because I applied to all these medical schools and I applied to one PA school. And I heard back from the PA school and I got accepted to the PA school before I heard back from the medical schools. And I only had a certain amount of time to accept it. And I told them all, look, I applied to all these other schools. They didn't care, right? So it was either, look, I accept this. It's relatively close to home. It's the cheapest. It's the shortest amount of school. It's the least amount of loans, but I probably will make the least amount of money coming out. But at the time, I was like, this is a no brainer. Like, I'll be 24 when I'm done school. Why the hell would I not do this? So I chose to do that. So my decision was really made for me. Looking back, I'm very happy I made that decision because if I were to go to medical school, I'm 29 right now. I would just be getting out of probably a residency. And this entire time, I probably would have been making 60 grand a year,
Mm.
working 80 hours a week. I probably wouldn't be in the shoes I'm in right now, wouldn't have met the people I've met and gone down the road that I've gone. So I'm very fortunate for this decision that was made really for me. But yeah, that was the thought process. There wasn't a whole lot of external influence other than
Mm.
the fact that I didn't want to be in super huge debt for medical school, and that I had already got accepted to a PA school. And I figured, okay, I can do the same thing as a physician can do as a PA with less schooling, with less liability, less debt, and I'll be 24 when I'm done school. So this was a no brainer.
That's
But yeah,
awesome.
I haven't practiced medicine for been like 3 years. Oh yeah, a little over three. Yeah, 3 years now. So I literally, if I stepped into a hospital right now, I'm sure it would come back to me, but I have no idea what I'm doing. Like
And that 3 years probably feels like an eternity.
it feels like a long time. Every time I step into a hospital, I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I don't wanna be here."
Mm. Wow. And one other thing that I thought of that, I meant to mention earlier when you were talking about making the $500 on that flip, I think a lot of people get held back because they're afraid of that, right? I'm gonna spend 100 hours on this thing and I'm not gonna get it. What were some of the lessons that you learned out of that made you better? Do you feel like because you did that, you're in a better place now?
I do, I do. It's so piss to think about it though, because you spend look, when you execute a flip, you are running a full-on business. You have a business model, you have systems, you have to manage this thing, you have capital raised, you have hard money or whatever it is, you're paying interest. So you have a bunch of different levers you have to be pulling here. To walk away from something that takes maybe 40 or 50 hours of your time for $500, do the math. That's $4 an hour or $5 an hour. I didn't get into real estate to make $5 an hour, right? Maybe 5,000 an hour or more, right? And it just didn't make sense. And since then, I've really ironed out, okay, this is how much we can pay for properties. If we will not go a dollar over this, right? We know the ARV, we know how much work it's going to need. We have all of our costs built in. We have this huge elaborate analysis sheet now with every single cost down to the tax you pay at close, the friggin' appraisal for $550 before you buy the property. Like everything is on this sheet. And if we aren't making a minimum of 50 grand on a flip, we will not do it. We just won't because things come up, more expenses come up than you can ever anticipate. And so what it did was it really just put better systems in place. So do I regret doing the deal? 100%. But do I regret like the actual process of? Absolutely not. Like it really just made this team stronger. So
If that hadn't have happened though, you say you regret doing the project. I wanna this is what I put together in my head. If that hadn't have happened, maybe you'd still be making 20, 30 grand on a flip. Whereas now we won't take it for less than 50. You wouldn't have built all those systems out if
yeah.
that hadn't have happened. So
Or I
I
would have done a deal and lost money. Then I would have been even more pissed.
I like to
Yeah.
think of all of my mistakes that I make as an opportunity and really look at it in a good light because it's hard to when you're like sitting here thinking about, oh my God, like I'm putting everything on the line right now. Like everything that I have in my bank account, I will be expending in the next 3 months for a business idea that I believe in and that I know I'm going to make work. And so it's like, if I screw up, if it doesn't go well, then I guess I'm gonna be on the street begging or working at Chick-fil-A, shoveling out chicken again. I don't know what it's gonna be, but if I mess up, I have that knowledge of I'm gonna learn so much in this process that the worst thing that can happen is I come out better on the other side.
Yeah. And also look, like in business, you don't win 100% of the time. So you take all these chances, you hope to win more than you lose. So you're going to have times where you lose, and it is what it is. It's not even a mistake. It's just, you just lose, like whatever, get up the next day and win, right? That's all it is. Like, you're going to lose a bunch of money. You're going to make a bunch of money. People are going to leave. You're going to hire great people. You're going to hire poor people. You're not going to fire the right people when you should. Like, dude, it's a full cycle, and you just want to make sure that you're on top more than you are below. And that's all it comes down to, really.
I love it. This has been a wonderful episode. I've got one last question that we'll end it on. I like to ask this question. I try to ask it to everybody, but sometimes I forget. But what would you say is like one connection, if you can think back on all the multitude of connections you've had, is there one that sticks out that really changed the trajectory or direction of your life?
It's not one person, dude. I keep bringing back to the mastermind I went to, but I am still, dude, those guys are my best friends now. Like, they are that, getting in that room. And I've done it in many rooms like that since then. And I'm friends with all those people too, and I do deals with all of them. But it started really with that one. If I hadn't gotten pulled into that one, if I didn't focus and bring as much value as I could to that one group when I was in there. And we actually still meet. I didn't say when I was. We still meet once a month. But that group alone has 10x my business without me even doing anything. And I just keep going back to it because it still blows my mind today to think about it. And what's funny is it's not just me, right? Like, we've gone over this a couple of times, and a couple of the other guys in the group are like, dude, like, this is the best day of the month. Like, every time I come here, I leave for a week straight. I've got different business ideas, different models I implement. I hire different people, all because of this group and the ideas that everybody brings to the table. So I would strive to get into something like that. If you are not in something like that, get into something like that. And they're everywhere. And if it's not, just start one. Like, you could be, go to the people who are doing things better than you, or bigger and better things, and say, look, I want to start a local mastermind, which is just a handful of guys who can bring serious value to people. I don't know. It's worth a shot. I've never done it, but it's worth a shot.
Dude, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. There's 5 high performers here in Chattanooga, and I'm working on getting all of us together in a room. But it's as easy as sending a text and throwing out an idea. I make less money than any of those guys do, but I want to organize this together because I know the worth of having people around me who are doing more than I am. And
Yeah.
all you have to do is just ask. People want to help.
And
I
it's not
love
monetary either. Sure, you might be making less money than all of them, but do any of them own a self-storage facility? I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But if they don't, they're going to be intrigued, right? So you have something that they do not have. So they're going to want to listen to you. They're going to want to learn from you if they're interested in it. It's not always about money. And also, it's not always about just the business and the money and the different types of strategy, right? Like, in my local group, I work the least. Like, I work the least out of everybody. I make probably close to, I don't know, maybe half of the guys doing there. But all the other guys are working like dogs, and they're trying to model my way of, I'll go mountain bike in the middle of the day. I'll go travel wherever I want to, and everything still works. For them, it's like that yet, but they're trying to get into that position. And for me, it's like, how do I get into your shoes where I'm making $1 million a month? You know what I mean? It's always that we're always bouncing back and forth and rubbing off on each other. So yeah, definitely get into something like that.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people follow along with you or reach out if they wanted to know more information?
Yes, social media is probably the easiest. Instagram at rjcorcoran08, or Facebook, Ryan Corcoran. I'm all over, whatever. You can find me. I do my best to respond to people. If you reach out with a specific question or something I can help with, I'm more than happy to chat.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Ryan, and we'll talk later.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
See ya.